Temple Run was a huge deal a decade ago, and it's wild to think that a team of 3 people developed a mobile game franchise that has been downloaded over 2 billion times. Though a few unintentional mistakes, if you can call them that, ended up making Subway Surfers more popular than Temple Run many years later. The history of Temple Run has some twists and turns and begins with the dawn of time. Not that dawn of time, but the launch of the iPhone. On June 29th, 2007, the iPhone was released in the United States of America.
What we're gonna do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen.
And this man, Keith Shepard, got an iPhone on day 1, and he wanted to try out this new iPhone thing first. Apple is key for Temple Run. Sorry to all the Android people. Keith met his wife, Natalia, at a job doing software development for a healthcare company. And Natalia is the second person of the 3-person team who developed Temple Run. One day, timeline unclear, Keith left his job. Or he was fired. Honestly, I couldn't really tell what happened. In one article, Keith said that he left his job, and in another article, somebody said he was fired. I don't actually know. But the point is that Keith was free to pursue other employment endeavors because nobody had him. He was unemployed. Keith, the technology-loving Apple man, was apparently looking for jobs, according to one interview. But he was also apparently thinking, could I make my own business? Lucky for him, Apple announced that they are developing something called the App Store, where people could make these apps and then sell them directly to people on iPhone. And Keith, the Apple-loving, software-developing, questionably unemployed man, saw this as an opportunity. Natalia continued to work at her day job, but Natalia was also a co-founder of Imangi Studios, which at this point was just Keith and Natalia. The Apple App Store launched in June 2008, and Keith and Natalia premiered their first app, a word game called Amangi, like the name of their studio, on opening day. Back when phone apps were new, people were more open to paying for phone apps because what were free apps? And I'm also talking from personal experience here. This might be a little bit too personal to share on the internet, but come here, let me tell you a secret. I have a distinct memory one time of paying $5 on my iPod Touch for the Toy Story Mania app. Looking back now, I can't believe I paid $5 for an app. Like, you know, I don't know what else I could have done with $5. I could have gotten a meal at McDonald's. Temple Run itself used to be a paid app too, which was not a great idea for Imangi Studios, but we're jumping ahead a little bit. The game Amangi was apparently $3.99 and made $5,000 during its first month of release, which I did the math, and that's approximately 1,254 downloads. Yes, I use a calculator, don't judge me like that. And Keith and Natalia thought that was pretty good. I mean, I think it's pretty good. And at some point, Natalia quit her job to go into the wild west of phone apps with her husband, Keith. A few months later, they released their second game, Amangi Word Square, which did not do as well as their first game. And, you know, they needed results. They needed money. And then they apparently thought at some point, what if we just make a racing game, but for kids? Little Red Sled was supposed to take 3 months to develop, but it ended up taking 6. Their snowy Christmas-esque sled game that was intended for the Christmas time of 2008 ended up coming out in February 2009 for $1.99. And this might be a surprise to you, but a Christmas game released in February did not do well. And a few months later, they released Harbor Master, which was their first real success. So they brought on an artist to their team of 2 named Kiril, who then did a lot of art things. And moving forward, they were a professional team of 3. And next came their game called Hippo High Dive, which was about a high-diving hippo, and then Geospark, which was... I don't even know what that was about, honestly. Neither of these games did well, and both took a few months to make. So at this point, Imangi Studios was like, we need another success. We are a small company of 3, and each of us is relying on this to work out because we need to buy things like groceries and toilet paper. Let's do something big, something bold. And that next game was called Max Adventure. It was called Max Adventure. If you'd never heard of Max Adventure before, neither had anybody else. And that was the problem. Max Adventure was a big time and big resource investment. Max Adventure failed hard. A year of their lives, seemingly wasted, and with the game losing money, it was obviously a financial burden. Max Adventure flopped so hard that Amangi Studios, apparently, was left in emotional shambles. After about 3 years of not being economically sustainable. Amangi Studios decided to not throw in the towel like many other people might have done, but instead to reanalyze their processes. Something about Max Adventure had not resonated with players, otherwise it wouldn't have flopped. The thing was, with Max Adventure, Amangi tried to adapt the traditional joystick control, like an arcade, to a phone, which proved to be complicated. And at this point, Amangi Studios needed a drastic change. They'd basically been losing money for 3 years. Okay, well, Harbor Master sounds like it made, but they'd basically been losing money for 3 years. They decided to try something different, something that they could make quickly, and something that could be very easily understood if you just picked up an iPhone and just started playing it. Or iPad Touch or iPad, whatever you had. So with all of this in mind, they started their new mystery project by focusing on the controls. Amangi Studios developed a system where you could swipe right and left with 90-degree turns. And hard 90-degree turns because this was very easy to understand on a touchscreen iPhone. They were also inspired by the old school randomly generating piped screensaver Windows used to have, which honestly I forgot existed until I was researching for this video. They wanted a game that would feel like you were moving along those randomly generated screensaver pipes, but what would that game be? Inspiration apparently came from the Great Wall of China and Mayan temples. It was decided that the game would be about an explorer who took something out of a Mayan-like temple, except it wasn't actually a Mayan temple because it wasn't about the Mayans, but it was like loosely inspired. It was adventure. It was generic. And there would be no end. The explorer would run until he died. It's just like life. You just go on until you die. Do not think about it too much. At this point, Amangi Studios knew their idea was stupid because it was. No logical person would just run endlessly until they died. The team decided that they needed something to chase the explorer because a logical person in that scenario would simply take a break. It had to be something that the player felt like they couldn't defeat. It had to be something that made you feel like you needed to run away from it because you couldn't just turn around and fight it. So Kiril? I don't know how to pronounce his name. I tried to look it up, but I couldn't figure it out. So Kiril came up with the idea of demon monkeys, and apparently the team argued fiercely over these demon monkeys, aka Natalia hated them. And interviews say that they fought over the demon monkeys, and not just like disagreed, but fought. And 2 of the 3 people in the studio were married, and let's be honest, married people fights are different than co-worker fights. Normally. I mean, can you imagine mixing married people and coworker fights together? Honey, how was your workday today? Screw you and that demon monkey idea. Babe, they add a sense of urgency to the sleep on the couch tonight until you agree that unicorn should be chasing the explorer. I don't think that's how the demon monkey fight situation went down between Keith and Natalia. I mean, I don't know them personally, so it could have. In the end, the demon monkeys won out, and Natalia later said that the demon monkeys were the right choice. The whole game was designed to be simple. Run until you die, collect gems, swipe, tilt, slide. Temple Run only took the team 4 months to make, and Temple Run was launched on the iPhone on August 4th, 2011, and cost 99 cents. Temple Run was not a success at first, or at least it wasn't like a big success. It debuted as number 50 on the paid app charts and then went down and down, which is normal. But Temple Run also had in-app game purchases if you wanted to upgrade your game experience. But you didn't need to pay for anything after you bought the game if you didn't want to. Reportedly, after buying the game, only some people were doing in-app purchases, but not a lot. So in a time when paying for phone app games was normal, I paid $4.99 for Toy Story Midway Mania. Amangi Studios said, let's do something bold. Let's make Temple Run free, and then hope that a bunch of people simply do in-app purchases that aren't actually needed to play the game. Now, this was a big move at the time. They'd experimented with free app downloads with Harbor Master on the iPad, and apparently that had worked out for them. The game went free in September, and I bet that was frustrating for some people. You can now download Temple Run for free. Oh man, I paid 99 cents for it yesterday. Temple Run climbed the free game charts, and in-app purchases skyrocketed. Temple Run, reportedly, was 10 times more profitable when the game was free versus when it was paid. On December 28th, 2011, Temple Run hit the #1 free app spot, and it was averaging 500,000 downloads a day. Amangi Studios were Apple couple of people, so Temple Run was like an iPhone phenomenon. So they hired people to adapt Temple Run for Android, which was released on March 27th, 2012. And Subway Surfers was released on May 24th, 2012, which has since become much more popular than Temple Run. But we will discuss Subway Surfers in a bit. There have been a number of Temple Run games released over the years. Temple Run 2, which we'll discuss in a minute and is the main reason that Subway Surfers overtook Temple Run, was released on January 16th, 2013. Temple Run 2 is still active. I'm an avid player. Temple Run has since also been adapted on computers, which I've been using a lot for this video because this is this is not a vertical video. As part of a Brave promotional campaign, Disney hired Imangi Studios to release Temple Run Brave on June 14th, 2012. Disney again asked Imangi Studios to make them a second Temple Run promotional game called Temple Run Oz, which was released on March 5th, 2013. There was a puzzle game and an idle game too, but like nobody cares about those. There's a bunch of different Temple Run games, but that unintentionally opened up the door for Subway Surfers. After the success of Temple Run, Amangi Studios wanted to make updates to the game, but they didn't want to mess with something that was working. But that ended up being a mistake, if you can call it a mistake, because that move allowed Subway Surfers to take over the Temple Run franchise. The original Temple Run became known as Temple Run Classic, and Temple Run 2 has received updates for the past decade. Temple Run 2 has received new maps and challenges and seasonal overlays, but whereas all of the games in the Temple Run franchise collectively have been downloaded over 2 billion times, Subway Surfers, which only has one app, has been downloaded over 4 billion times. And Subway Surfers has grown in popularity since 2020, whereas the Temple Run franchise peaked between 2011 and 2013. And the Temple Run franchise is not dead by any stretch of the imagination. The endless runner genre exploded after the success of Temple Run. Subway Surfers released in 2012, and in 2013, Subway Surfers released their World Tour idea, which was a concept that they invented. Subway Surfers decided that their app would only offer one playable map at a time, which is usually themed to a city or something. And every 3 to 4 weeks, the map changes to a new destination, hence the World Tour idea. Obviously, this was a risky strategy on Subway Surfers' part. Subway Surfers basically had something that their players liked, but they said,
"Hey, you can't play that anymore.
You can only play this current version now." And Temple Run instead made sequels because logically it's scary to mess with something that's working because you could ruin everything if you change something that players like. Temple Run offered a variety of options, including multiple maps on Temple Run 2. By creating many apps, the Temple Run franchises subdivided their audience into many apps, where many of them eventually lost interest in the concept, whereas it's reported that Subway Surfers has created lifelong players who will return for refreshing maps on the same app. Years later, the results are what they are. And in recent years, Subway Surfers has definitely been growing in popularity. Just look at the number of daily active Subway Surfers players. There's another unexpected reason that Subway Surfers has done so well recently. Sludge content is a whole other conversation. It's such another conversation that I have an entire video on the rise of sludge content if that interests you. And since Subway Surfers is often a mindless video of choice in sludge content, and sludge content has been popping up everywhere, a lot of people are interested now in playing Subway Surfers because they're seeing it everywhere. I mean, sludge content definitely uses Temple Run sometimes, but Subway Surfers is way more common. The question is, if Temple Run had stayed with one app and only offered one map at a time, which they probably would have never done because that's a strategy that Subway Surfers invented, would Temple Run have maintained more popularity over the years compared to Subway Surfers? That is an answer we'll never know. But at the time of this video, Amangi Studios has placed a pop-up on Temple Run 2 asking if anybody wants to beta test their new Temple Run game. Now, beta tests are confidential, so I would never let you know if I received that pop-up or if I expressed interest to be a beta tester. I would never. I'm not going to talk about it. What we can see is the Temple Run franchise is clearly up to something. When you play endless runner games, do you ever think about ESRB video game ratings? No? Neither do I. But now that you're thinking about ESRB video game ratings, do you ever think about the history of ESRB video game ratings and how they came to be? No? If you want to know about the history of ESRB video game ratings and how that all came to be, please click over here. And thank you so much for watching.